Hate to break it to you, but nothing good is going to happen until you get up from where you are and you begin to take positive steps to move in the right direction. And this is about mindset. You see, your mindset has to shift before your movement shifts. You're not going to have new movement in your life without a new mindset. And so I go from I can't to I might to I'll try. And if you try enough, then you go from a striving mindset to a thriving mindset. This is an unbelievably powerful thing that happens because in a thriving mindset, now you say, I've got this. So a person goes from I can't to now they're so confident that they're saying, I've got this. This is now a competency for me. This is now a strength for me. This is now something that I feel like I can thrive in. Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning into this video. You know, we've been spending a lot of time over the last several videos talking about a neuroscience-based approach to change management. And today, what I want to talk about is this idea that if you can master your mindset, you can master the change. Now, at the end of the day, change is not something that any one of us can stop. We all know that. The reality is that change is happening and it's going to keep happening for a long time. And so if change is going to continue, and we know that, in other words, the only constant is change, then the question I think for organizational leaders and for those of us who are in any kind of relationship is how can I create a brain-friendly environment for that change to exhibit itself in? In other words, I may not be able to change the situation, but how can I shape as a leader and just as a good human, the environment so that people can handle that change in a way that doesn't cause them to collapse, but they can actually handle that change in a proactive, healthy, and profitable way. We've been talking about the fact that we, as an organization, have really been bringing this message and help to a lot of for-profits and nonprofits, actually even, over 30 First Nations right across Canada. We've been doing this work because it's this idea that belonging brings better. Right. And this is so important, right? If I want better community, better business, better team, better nonprofit, better mosque, better temple, better synagogue, better church, then what I have to think about is how can I create an environment where everybody feels like they belong? Because if I do that, what's going to happen is I'm going to have better results. I'm going to have better return on investment. I'm going to have more productivity. I'm going to have more profit. I'm going to have more sustainability. I'm going to have all of those things. And so we've been looking at the fact that there's a way that we can do that. And so much of that has to do with how leaders themselves operate in the environment, right? I, as a leader, have a major impact on the level of safety and the level of strength that people feel in that environment so that they can actually be themselves and not operate in a place where they're feeling threatened. Now, all of that is true. And, one of the things that I also do in organizations and our team does is not just focus on the top level. In other words, a lot of organizational consultants and trainers come in and they'll say to the workplace, well, hey, you know what? You guys have wrong policies. You guys need better leaders. And so they spend a lot of time on the environment. But did you know that the environment is only half the picture? Did you know that the other half of the picture is actually the mental health and the mindset and the well-being of the people who are walking into the room? Let me kind of explain this to you like this. Imagine you created a perfect environment, like literally everything in your environment is just perfect. And we all know that's not realistic, but let's just say it was. And then you had an imperfect person come into that environment. Let's just say somebody who had been damaged. Maybe they've been damaged by dysfunction. Maybe they've been damaged by trauma. Maybe they've been damaged by just the harsh events of life. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, all you're doing is running your business. You have no idea what people are experiencing outside of the workplace, of course, unless they tell you. And so, you worked so hard to create this inclusive, psychologically safe, respectful environment where everyone belongs and everyone has an opportunity to give voice to the stuff that matters and everyone is supported and everyone's empowered. And listen, we need to do all of those things and more. But imagine a person comes in who's hurting or wounded, will the environment itself just kind of heal that person and make that person better? No, of course not. Why? Because you bring an imperfect person into a perfect environment, immediately the environment becomes imperfect, right? I have no problem admitting this on my own. I've walked into some environments that were just fine, and then I wrecked them all by myself, And yet, on the other hand, I have come into environments when I've been strong, when I've been healthy, when I felt empowered. I have come into an imperfect environment and I've actually made it better over and over and over again. So what are we talking about? Are we talking about flourishing workplaces and healthy workplaces, or are we talking about healthy people? Well, I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's actually both. And so one of the things that's unique about our approach to training in the workplace is we don't just focus on the organization and the leaders. In other words, the top line. We also support people at the individual level, right? I don't just want to beat up on the leaders and say, well, hey, you guys got to get better at this and better at that. Of course, let's go on a journey where we're all improving. But I want to give the people on the team the tools that they need in order to thrive. Now, it doesn't matter if you're running a sales team and your goal is to have the best sales in the world. Listen, who cares if you have a bunch of people who come in with stress and anxiety and depression, right? Are you still there? Who cares if you're we're going to build the best, pharmacy ever. I talked to a guy a couple of weeks ago who owns a pharmacy and a couple of pharmacies, and he's trying to make it happen, and he's trying to make a lot of money with pharmacy. And you can make a lot of money in that profession. But I said, how's your team? And he said, well, they're not doing very good. And I said, well, how's your business results? Not very good. I said, well, listen, if you want better results, then you need healthier people. Now, I know today we spend a lot of time on mental health, right? It's kind of like, what's your diagnosis, right? And all of that is fine. I've got my diagnosis. You've got yours. That's the world we live in. And I mean that seriously. I have my diagnoses, okay? Maybe you have yours too. But there's a part of mental health that doesn't get talked about enough. And can I suggest that part of mental health that needs to be talked about more is our mindset. Okay, our mindset. Now, you might say right off the bat, well, Abe, that's great, but what is a mindset? A mindset is sort of the attitudinal approach that we have to a situation. Now, it is shaped by your mental health, but it's not completely determined by your mental health, okay? Because a mindset is actually something that you both learn and also choose based on the environment that you were raised in and based on the choices that you make. So let me give you an example. Maybe I'll use myself so that you don't think I'm talking about somebody else, because I'm not. I am actually going to talk about me. I was raised in an abusive and pretty toxic environment, and that had nothing to do with choices that I made, okay? I just showed up, little baby boy, and kind of got stuck into a situation that was over my head and that wasn't very good for me. Now, on top of that, or maybe because of that, who knows, which came first, the chicken or the egg, I ended up, by the age of 7, I received my first mental health diagnosis, okay? And so age of 7. And so that was a while ago, but that's how old I was when I got my first diagnosis. So you have trauma environment, you have diagnoses, maybe it's genetic, maybe it's environmental, maybe it's, the water I was drinking, who knows, but it is what it is. Trauma environment, diagnosis from the expert, from the doctor, from the professional. So I got this trauma, I got this diagnosis, but then I end up going to school. And when I started going to school, even as young as 8 years old, I was getting into fights literally every day. Okay. And then as I got into my older youth and my teen years, I started to get into gang activity and started to, get into just a lot of things that I don't necessarily need to repeat right here. Now, I could very easily say, well, it's because of the trauma. And I never did that, but I could see how I could make that argument. I could also see how you could make the argument, well, no, actually, it wasn't the trauma, it was the mental health. And I don't think I ever made that argument, but I could go there. I can see how people go there. But then that would, in both cases, be a lie, because the trauma did have some impact and some influence, and the diagnosis did. But listen, I remember making choices, okay? So I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I was some robot, programmed by my trauma or, determined by the fate of my diagnosis. I actually made choices to do dumb things. That was my situation, my reality. Now, I'm so grateful that there were people who came into my life and helped me to cultivate wellness and health. I'm so grateful that there were people who came into my life and said, Abe, you're better than this. You're better than the things that have happened to you. You're better than the labels that have been put on you, as in your diagnosis or whatever label somebody's put on you. You can still make choices in a different way. In other words, you have all the power you need to become the human that you're supposed to become. You don't have to sit there and say, well, I am who I am because of what's happened to me. I am who I am because of what the experts told me. No, you're still a person who can build something. Now, the past will make it harder. The diagnosis will make it even harder, but you can still become that. All of that had to do with my mindset. Now, if you have a surviving mindset, what happens is it doesn't matter. Your response is always, I can't. Right? So somebody comes along and says, hey, why don't you take a course? I can't. Hey, why don't you get out of debt? I can't. Hey, why don't you stop having conflict? I can't. That's a mindset. Okay, that's a choice that a person's makes. Now we move from what's called a surviving mindset, and this is growth, friends, to what's called a protecting mindset. Now, the difference between a surviving mindset and a protecting mindset is in a protecting mindset, you say, I'm not sure, right? Now, listen, the distance between I can't and I'm not sure is very small in terms of the words and the letters, but it's massive in terms of the mindset. Because imagine somebody comes to you and they say, hey, you know what, Joe, you got to make a change. Hey, Abe, you got to make a change. And I'm like, I can't. Well, guess what? I can't. As long as I say I can't, don't matter how much you pressure me or fire me or, try to manipulate me or push me, I can't. But when I move from surviving to protecting, and protecting is maybe an interesting word, but I want you to think about it as a cautious mindset. You're kind of like, okay, I might. I'm not sure yet. Now, this is really important because when somebody starts to think I might, all of a sudden, possibilities emerge, right? There's no possibilities that can emerge and I can't. But as long as you're saying I might, then now there's an opportunity that exists for you to change. And I remember the moment in my life when I was like 16-year-old kid, I moved from I can't to I might. I tell you, it was over a simple thing, quitting smoking. And I think actually at that point I was maybe 18. And I couldn't quit. It was so hard. It was like so difficult. I was like surviving mindset. I can't. But then I started to imagine a world where I might. I'm so happy to say I haven't touched a cigarette in a couple of decades. I haven't even thought about it. It doesn't even enter my mind. But if you had said that to me when I was like that 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, I would have been like, I can't. But I had to go from I can't to I might. I had to go from a surviving mindset. Some of you listening to this, you're in a surviving mindset to a protecting mindset. You're still not there yet. You're still cautious, and it's okay because it's just one step we're asking you to take. But at least now you're saying I might. Then you go from protecting to striving. Now, what's the difference between protecting and striving? The difference is I move from I can't to I might to I will try. So in a striving mindset, and the whole idea behind striving is I'm going to put in the effort. Nothing positive in your life happens until you put in the effort. Hate to break it to you, but nothing good is going to happen until you get up from where you are and you begin to take positive steps to move in the right direction. And this is about mindset. You see, your mindset has to shift before your movement shifts. You're not going to have new movement in your life without a new mindset. And so I go from I can't to I might to I'll try. And if you try enough, then you go from a striving mindset to a thriving mindset. This is an unbelievably powerful thing that happens because in a thriving mindset, now you say, I've got this. So a person goes from I can't to now they're so confident that they're saying, I've got this. This is now a competency for me. This is now a strength for me. This is now something that I feel like I can thrive in. Now, what does this have to do with the workplace? You're sitting here saying, oh, this is all great, but what does this have to do? Because as a team lead, as an executive, as a CEO, I have to understand that every one of my people comes into the room, and that may be an online room, with a different mindset. Okay, some people are in I can't. In other words, they're just surviving. I mean, they're literally just trying to get going. And other people come in and their mindset is a lot more, I might. And in other words, they're protecting, they're cautious. They're not ready to take the deep dive yet, but at least there's an openness. And then other people are striving, like they're trying, they're doing their best. They're putting in the effort. And then there's others on your team who are thriving. Now, and they're like, I got this. Now, we'd all like all of our team to be thriving. Of course you would. I mean, that's why the most valuable asset you have is people, but not just any kind of person. I mean, you need thriving people. But as a leader, you might be the change agent that helps somebody go from a surviving mindset to a protecting mindset, to a striving mindset, to a thriving mindset. As a matter of fact, in the workplace, you are the change agent. It's about how you engage with them. It's about how you communicate with them. It's about adapting your approach and your leadership style to every one of the team members that you have. If you adapt your approach and you adapt your style and you adapt your posture to the mindset of the person that you're working with, then you're creating a brain-friendly environment for that person so that they feel respected, they feel seen, they feel heard. The number one thing you can do to move a person from a surviving mindset, which is I can't, to a thriving mindset, which is I've got this, is go to where they are. Adapt your approach to the mindset that they have and begin creating, if you can, once they feel safe and they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel understood, begin to create little baby steps that they can allow themselves to move from here to there to everywhere. Now, let me just tell you how this works in practice. I have a wonderful team member, and I don't mind mentioning her because, she's been such a big part of my team. Actually, her name is Cynthia, Chau-Hoang. She just celebrated her 5th anniversary. And so this, with us as a working together. And so this is a bit of a shout out to her. Listen, she was very competent when I hired her. Of course, she had a lot of skills. She had a very solid resume. But I was asking her to do tasks that she hadn't done before, making sales calls, running social media, often engaging at a very high level with clients and even speaking and facilitating and doing things that she had never done before. And I'll tell you what, I saw the potential in her. The potential was always there. But as a leader, I just kept adapting my approach as I saw her go from a surviving mindset to a protecting mindset to a striving mindset. And now in so many ways, she's thriving even better than I am. And I just love that because number one, and all the kudos actually goes to her. And that is that she was open to try new things. She was open to kind of evolve. But secondly, as a leader, I also was willing to adapt my approach, right? I was open to saying it doesn't have to be my way or the highway. It doesn't always have to happen on my timetable. I'm going to adapt my approach to you. Why? Because belonging brings better, right? If I want to see her thrive, then it's really simple. I just need to continue to work with her and create that environment. And so what's the easiest way to do this? Well, I like to call this the ABCs to creating belonging. Just 3 simple things. And I even made it easy by going A, B, C, and you know the alphabet as well as I do. The A is acknowledging the other person. And this is every time you see progress, every time you see forward movement, acknowledging it, even This might shock you, but even acknowledge the backward movement. In other words, maybe they try something and they fail. Maybe they don't do great. Even acknowledge that. What would you acknowledge? Acknowledge the courage. Hey, Cynthia, I just want to celebrate you because, yeah, you didn't hit it the way you wanted to, but I just want to praise and celebrate you for having the bravery to try, to step out. Acknowledgement is so critical. People need to be seen, heard, they need to be understood. The second thing is to always be authentic. Okay, so you as a leader, being authentic is really important. Now, you might say, well, I'm authentic, and when I'm authentic, people get hurt because I just speak my mind. Don't be that authentic. In other words, you being authentic is not a license for you to be abusive, right? I think sometimes people think that it is. Well, I was just being me. And it's like, yeah, but so what you have to do, and all of us have to do in our authenticity, is to find a way to marry authenticity with respect, right? So when you do have a problem with somebody, when they haven't performed properly, or when maybe, they've created a situation that's not healthy, then be authentic, but do it in a way that's respectful, of course, right? Like that's the minimum that anyone should deserve from you, from me, from all of us. And then third, constantly, and this is the C. So A is acknowledge the person. B is be authentic. But then the C is to communicate belief in the person over and over and over again. You know what? A lot of people don't believe in themselves. It's 2024. Why don't people believe in themselves? Because they are constantly, relentlessly hit 24/7 with social media images and ideas of what success looks like, or what women should look like, or what men should look like, or what success and or accomplishment and or achievement looks like. And so, of course, people don't feel confident today. Like, why are we surprised by that? Like 1,000 years ago, you didn't have 900 images hitting you a day of all the sexy people and all the successful people, and have to live with the comparison factor, the gap factor. Well, I'm not that, therefore I must suck. No, you don't suck. And you are amazing. But maybe as a leader, you're the only one telling people that they're amazing. Maybe you're the one who's standing up there every day and saying, man, I see the good in you. We hired you for a reason. You've got so much in you. And so, friends, let me just throw this out there. I'll tell you what, the mindset is everything. But if you want to see that mindset evolve, then A, acknowledge them, B, be authentic, and C, communicate belief in that person. And so let me just encourage you. Number one, leader, your responsibility is to create that sense of belonging. Your responsibility is to create that sense of safety. Why? Because when you do, everyone on your team is going to perform at their best, but you don't have to do it alone. Tell you what, we've got this whole playbook here that we actually work through. And I'm not selling you the playbook. You can't just order this online because it's actually information that we want to walk through with you and your team and support you. You don't have to do this by yourself. Tell you what, you can connect with our team. All the information is below. You can actually hop on a call with that Cynthia that I talked about. She's amazing. And she'll at least try to understand, what's your team facing? What are you guys feeling? How, if, can we be a support to where you are and where you'd ultimately like to go? So, hey, click that link below. And hey, by the way, would you help us out? Like and subscribe to our channel here, and make sure that you are that person who, maybe even shares this. You have no idea what organizational leader out there needs to hear this message, and you can be a part of the change process for them. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in our next video.